Hello all. Today we are going to do exploratory data analysis on global terrorism. So I have the CSV file with me wherein there are many rows and columns in the data set. So practically seeing that CSV file will make no sense. Only when we work on the data, when we filter the data well, we can understand the patterns in the data. So for that reason we are doing exploratory data analysis. So let us get started with it. First we will import the necessary libraries. Here I have imported NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib and Seaborn for visualization, and imported warnings because sometimes there are unnecessary warnings which are coming. So to avoid that we import warnings and we ignore that warnings. Now let us just run this cell. The cell got executed. Now let us load the data. I have given the data frame name as df pd.read_csv. It's a CSV file, that's why I have given CSV file CSV here. If it is an Excel file then we would write pd.read_excel, but it's a CSV file, that's why we have given CSV as name. Then this is the path, and the encoding that we are using is Latin 1 encoding. When I tried with UTF encoding it was not happening, so I tried out Latin 1 encoding and it worked. Let us first see first 5 rows of this dataset by executing the cell. Cell got executed, we got first 5 rows and there are many columns. We could see there are dotted lines in between. So this indicates that there are many columns, but they haven't given more columns into it. Very limited columns are shown here. How many exactly rows and columns are there, we are not getting the idea of it. So to get the idea of it, we use the attribute .shape. .shape will help us to understand how many rows and columns are there in the data. So I am running this cell in order to see rows and columns. So there are 1,81,691 rows and 135 columns. Imagine the data is so much big that we have to deal with. Now it is practically not possible for us to see the entire columns in the data set, and even it is not given here. So to at least see what all columns are there in the data, we use toList, which is given here, df.columns.toList, in order to see the list of all the columns that are there in the data. So let us execute this cell in order to see how many columns and what all columns are there in the data. So there is event ID, I year, I month, I day, approx date. There are so many columns in the data sets. So all of them are listed here. Their names are listed here basically. So we are not going to deal with each and every columns here. We are going to only selectively take up those columns which are important for our analysis. Say for example here the month, the day, the country, region, all these, the target type, the weapon type, the groups, terrorist groups who are involved in this, these are the key columns that are important for our analysis. There are many certain columns like target type 2, target type 2 text, target subtype. All these columns are redundant. They are of no use to us because they are unnecessary columns. They are redundant. We can't come up with a good conclusion when we include all of these columns together. So we are not taking into consideration those. We are going to only select those columns which are important for our analysis. So also there is one thing that I year, I month, I day, these names should be replaced. They should be renamed. Instead of I year we are going to use year, I month we are going to use month, I day we are going to use day instead of I day. So we are going to make systematic renaming of all those columns that we are going to use in the analysis. So let us first rename those columns that we are going to use. We are going to use year, so I year will be replaced by year, I month by month, I day by day, and country txt by only country, and so on. And in place equal to true. In place equal to true means we are going to permanently make changes in the data frame that we are considering. So let us run this cell. After running the cell, in order to ensure that whether we have replaced this successfully or not, we will again see the list df.columns.toList. So event id, year, month, day, yes, we have executed it perfectly, there is no problem, and it is successfully, we have renamed those columns which are important for our analysis. Now we will pick up selective columns which are important. As I said, year is important, month, day, country, state, region, city, these are very important for our analysis. Let us run this cell. Let us first see first 5 rows by df1.head. Now first I have took the name of the data frame as df, and now after renaming I have done df1. So to differentiate, the old data was not filtered properly and the new data is now properly filtered. So new name is given to the data frame df1, and these are the first 5 rows and these are the columns. Now let us see the information of this dataset. Now .info, this function will help us to understand how many null values are there. At the same time, we will also be able to see the data types of all the respective columns. So let me run this cell first. So here is there is null values in it, and int 64, it's a data type, and for rest of the part is also same thing. It is, there are certain null values in the dataset like latitude, longitude. We will deal with all of these null values in the next steps. Now let us look at the unique values in the data. Now uniquely identifying the values in a particular column individually is more time consuming. So for that reason we have used for loop. It will loop across all the columns and it will give us the unique values for every particular columns. So let me run this. So after running this, I get here 47 unique values are there. For month there are 13, for day there are 32, and so on. Countries 205, there are 205 countries that we are considering in our analysis. Now let us check the percentage of null values that are there in our data. So we have used df1.isNull.sum length of df into 100. So this will help us to find the percentage of null values. So year, month, there is no null value here, negligible null value, it is fair enough. So as I could see, killed and wounded, this has the null values and we need to treat those null values accordingly. So for wounded, instead of null values we are going to fill null values with 0. Also for killed, we are going to fill the null values with 0. So let me execute this. Let us see the summary statistics of the data. So this is the summary that we get from the .describe function. Now looking at only summary will not make sense. We need to do in-depth analysis. So first we are going to take up univariate analysis, and then we will do bivariate analysis. So let us start with univariate analysis of the dataset. So first we will analyze the attack types. So first let us see what are the counts of the attack types that have taken place. So I'm executing the cell first. So bombing explosion 88,255, armed assault 42,669, and so on. So from this we could understand that the attack type is primarily of bombing and explosion, followed by armed and assault. So whatever observations that we get from this, we are going to note these observations in the cell. So here I have observed, here observation. I have observed that from the above information, bombing explosion attack type is more followed by then armed force is more, put a comma, is more followed by armed assault, and so on. To understand this better, we are going to plot a count plot for the same so that we can visualize this thing correctly. So here I have done, this is attack type. On the x-axis there is attack type, and on the y-axis there are counts. So we could see that bombing explosion has more given emphasized by the terrorist groups, followed by armed assault, then assassination, and so on. Then countries that are affected by terrorism, let us do country analysis, wherein we are going to understand the countries that are mostly affected by the terrorism. So there are too much countries, so many countries are there, so that's why there are dots here. So practically it's impossible to understand each and every country's attacks. That's why there are only few which are mentioned here. So there are so many countries in the dataset. I have seen that there are 205 countries. As we could see here, when we run the for loop, at that time we saw, yes, 205 countries were there. So we will only consider top 10 countries to make our analysis simple. So we are going to take dot value underscore counts 0 to 10. See how top 10 countries. So Iraq is the first country wherein there is a lot of terrorism, followed by Pakistan, which is affected by terrorism, Afghanistan, India, and so on. Now we are going to plot this information graphically. So we have plotted this information graphically. Here I have used palette as magma. You can use any palette whichever you want. Now choosing the palette is very easy. We just have to go to this Seaborn documentation, wherein there is information given of different palettes. You can use any of the palettes that you like. I've used magma in this case. You can use rocket. You can use rocket underscore R. Then where it is crest, flare. So all these are different palettes that we can use. I will link those in the description box. The link of the palettes that we need to choose. So from this analysis, from this graph, we could understand that Iraq is the top country which is affected by terrorism, followed by Pakistan, then Afghanistan, India, Colombia, etc. Okay, so our observation, whatever observation that we get from this, we have to note these observations. After noting down this observation, we are going to see target attacks. Now target attacks, here target types we are going to understand. Target types means to whom the terrorists have targeted the most. So we'll see the value counts of it. So private citizens and property 43,511, then military 27,984, police, followed by government, general and all. So this is the data that we have in hand. So let us plot this information graphically. As we could see, private citizens are affected most in the terrorist attacks, followed by military people, then police, then government, and so on. So whatever observation that I have said, this needs to be noted down here, so that when we come up with the final conclusion, we can club all those observations. Then regions that were affected the most. Now let us understand how many regions that are affected the most because of this terrorism. Also the states that are affected the most. So we are going to plot subplot, and in this subplot we will get the idea about what all the regions that are affected and the states that are affected. So let me run this cell. So I get a beautiful graphical representation of the top attacked regions and top 15 attacked states. So we could see that again the Middle East and North Africa is the most attacked region, followed by South Asia, then South America, Sub-Saharan Africa, etc. Here top 15 attacked state is Baghdad, which comes in Iraq, then Northern Ireland, unknown, Balochistan, and so on. So what all observations that we have got, we are going to write down here. Run this cell. Type of weapon used. Now what all type of weapons that are used by the terrorist, the most common types of weapons which are used, let us see the percentage of it. So explosives are used exclusively, more than half is only explosives. Then firearms 32%, unknown 8%, then and so on. Okay, now let us just plot this information graphically. As we could see, explosives, firearms, top 5 weapons that are used. So these are the top 5 weapons that are used by the terrorist, but the more share is of explosives. Let us analyze the number of attacks that took place every year. We are going to plot this information, and we have got this picture wherein, as we could see, from 1970 to 2017 this data is there. So from 1970 this is just increasing. As we could see, it is just increasing, and it was normal till 2011 or 2012. But as 2013 came, from there is a spike in the attacks. As we could see here, there's a spike in the attacks. So more number of attacks have taken place after 2012. That is what we have observed. Now let us understand the number of deaths that have taken place every year with the help of diagram, obviously. So as we have observed in the previous figure, that after 2012 there are attacks that are increased. At the same time, deaths have also increased after 2012. So they are correlated like that. Attacks have increased, at the same time it's very obvious that when attacks are increased, obviously the deaths are going to increase. So it's correct. The data is proper, no issues at all. Here also after 2012 we could see a spike, an increase in the number of deaths. So it is matching. This both of the graphs are matching. Recording the observation is important. So here we have recorded number of deaths have increased after 2013. More than 25,000 plus people died in this attack. Now we have done with univariate analysis so far. Now let us do bivariate analysis. So region wise analysis is what we are going to do first. We are going to plot subplots wherein we will show the comparison of the number of people who have wounded, region wise number of people who have wounded, and region wise number of people who have been killed. So if I run this cell, I get the clear picture in front of me. Regions with wounded people, regions with killed people. So we can make a good comparison between them if we plot subplots. So Middle East and North Africa has more people who are wounded, followed by South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa. Here also Middle East and North Africa, again South Asia, Sub-Saharan. So this pattern is followed very well, that there are more number of people in the regions who are wounded, at the same time they are killed also. So the regions of Middle East and North Africa are the most killed and wounded, followed by South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. So let us do a country-wise analysis. Previously we have done region-wise analysis. Now let us do country-wise analysis. So again we are going to plot the subplots wherein we will be seeing wounded people country-wise, killed people country-wise. So subplots will help us to compare things. Let us run this cell. After running this cell, we get country having killed people, country having wounded people. So Iraq tops the list, followed by Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria. Again coming back to wounded people country wise, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India. So again, as we could see, killed people and wounded people are the same in all the countries. The countries which are having killed people more are also having wounded people more. So whatever observations that we have done so far should be written point wise. Then we will see terrorist group wise analysis. So there are certain terrorist groups which are active globally. We will see which terrorist groups have harmed the most, and for that we are going to plot figure. After plotting this, we get top 10 terrorist organizations. So there are many terrorist organizations which are there globally functioning. They are very active, but we are only interested in the top 10 terrorist organization because considering all terrorist groups, small, big, everyone, is not going to make sense. We are going to understand only the top 10. So Taliban tops the list, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, then Shining Path, and so on. So observation is that Taliban is at the top, followed by ISIL. Now let us analyze how many attacks that have taken place because of by Taliban, and how many attacks over the years he has made. So particularly we are going to understand how many attacks over the years Taliban has made. So we are going to just group Taliban with a different data frame to make our analysis simpler. So we have given the name tf1 underscore tal and df1 group equal to Taliban. So this is the data that we have. So it's too much. We are not able to understand what exactly is conveyed in this particular data frame. So there are 7, 4, 7, 8 rows and 17 columns. Imagine the data is huge. So let us plot it so that we can get a clear picture. So if we plot from 1995, the attacks made by Taliban has increased from 2013. More specifically, after 2011. After 2011, the Taliban attacks have increased exponentially. So it's growing. 2015 is the most attack that has been done by Taliban. So we will record this observation, and finally we are going to club all the conclusions that we have made so far. So insights that can be drawn after doing this exploratory data analysis. Now let me walk you through this. Bombing, explosion, attack is more, followed by armed assault that we have seen before. Iraq is the most affected country by terrorism, followed by Pakistan, Afghanistan, and so on. Most targeted people are private citizens and property, followed by military, police, and so on. The attacked region are Middle East and North Africa, followed by South Asia. Top attacked state is Baghdad. Then explosive and firearms. Explosive actually contributes more than half, followed by firearms. Then more number of attacks have taken place after 2012, that is what we have observed, and also there is a spike in the number of attacks country wise and region wise after 2014, and the most is there in 2014. Most attacks have taken place in 2014. The number of deaths have increased in 2013. More than 25,000 plus people have died in the attack. The regions of Middle East and North Africa the most killed and wounded, followed by South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Then again Iraq has a major issue with terrorism. More people are getting wounded and killed in Iraq from the entire globe, followed by Pakistan and other countries like Sub-Saharan Africa and so on. Taliban is a terrorist organization which has topped the list of top 10 terrorist organization, followed by ISIL. So since 2014 there is a spike in the number of attacks which are done by Taliban. So that is what we have observed in the entire exploratory data analysis that we have done. So yeah, that's it from my end. Thank you so much for watching my video.